Welcome to the Biomedical Podcast, the podcast that connects groundbreaking research with real-world answers. I'm Dr. Bensada, and in every episode, we examine new published articles to take a close look at the discoveries that are changing how we see science. We aim to fire up your interest and start a talk that goes beyond the lab.
Have you ever thought that your morning coffee, or maybe like a grapefruit, could actually have tiny little messengers inside them that could maybe help fight cancer or other diseases?
Wow, that's a really interesting thought.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not something you think about every day, is it?
No, not really, but that's exactly what we're diving into today on the Biomedical Podcast. We're talking about something called plant-derived exosome-like nanoparticles, or PDNVs.
So PDNVs, huh?
Yeah, they're basically these naturally occurring, like super tiny packages found in plants, edible plants.
Okay. And they're being looked at for like all sorts of health and medical applications.
Exactly. We're going to try to really break it down today so that whether you're a student or just someone interested in science, you can really grasp the potential of these PDNVs.
Sounds good. I'm all ears.
So we're going to be basing this deep dive on some really interesting in vitro studies, meaning they were done in the lab on cells, and also some in vivo research.
So research done in living organisms.
Yeah, like animal models, mostly mice. And we're also going to be looking at a lot of cool analyses that basically help us understand what these PDNVs are made of and where they come from.
Okay, so kind of getting the full picture.
Right. So to kick things off, let's just start with the basics. What exactly are these PDNVs?
Well, imagine like the tiniest little sac. You know, it's surrounded by a membrane, a liquid bilayer membrane.
A membrane?
Yeah, it's like a thin layer of fat molecules.
Ah, okay.
And that's important because it kind of lets them interact with our cells.
Okay, so similar to like how our own cells have membranes, right?
Exactly.
Got it.
Now, they're often called exosome-like because they look a lot like exosomes, which are, little packages produced by animal cells. But there's this really cool paper by Liu and others that came out in Cell in 2022 that basically said it's actually quite tricky to say exactly where these PDNVs come from within the plant.
Interesting. So it's kind of like we know they're there and what they look like, but we don't know everything about them yet.
Yeah, exactly. It's still early days in terms of research.
That makes sense. And they're small, right? Like how small are we talking?
Super small. Usually somewhere between 30 and 200 nanometers. You can't even see them with a regular microscope.
Wow, nano. That is tiny.
Yeah, but don't let their size fool you. They can still pack a punch.
So what exactly are these tiny packages made of?
They're full of interesting stuff. They've got a lot of these phospholipids, which are basically the building blocks of that membrane we talked about.
Right, the fatty outer layer.
Yeah. And they're also packed with plant-specific fats called galactolipids. Some really interesting ones like DGDG and MGDG. That same 2022 paper by Liu and Cell, they found all sorts of cool stuff about their composition.
Cool. And I remember from my basic biology that cholesterol is a big part of animal cell membranes, right?
You got it. But here's the thing. PDNVs don't really have cholesterol. That's one of the things that makes them unique.
Wow. So they're like these tiny, super specialized packages. But how do scientists even get these nanoparticles out of the plants? I mean, they're so small.
That's where the cool technology comes in.
Yeah.
There are all sorts of techniques they use. One common one is called differential ultracentrifugation. Basically, they spin plant extracts at really, really high speeds. And because the nanoparticles are so small and light, they separate out.
So it's kind of like a super centrifuge.
Pretty much. There's a great paper by Kantar Çolu and his team from 2023 in the Turkish Journal of Gastroenterology, where they talk about these different techniques.
Cool.
They also use other methods, like size exclusion chromatography, which separates them based on their size. Plus, they have fancy things like nanoparticle tracking analysis and electron microscopy to see what they actually look like and how many there are.
It sounds really complex.
It is. It's quite intricate, really. But it's also amazing what scientists can do these days.
Absolutely. So we've talked about what they are and have to study, but let's get to the good stuff. What are these little plant packages actually doing in our bodies?
Well, one area where they're showing a lot of promise is cancer therapy.
Cancer therapy.
Yeah. What's interesting is that researchers are finding that PDNVs from all sorts of plants, things like coffee, citrus fruits, even bitter melon, seem to be able to interfere with how cancer cells grow and survive.
Oh, wow. Really?
Seems like there might be some kind of fundamental mechanism there that we're just starting to uncover. It could be a whole new way of approaching cancer treatment.
That's so cool. So, like, how does it actually work? Can you give us an example?
Sure, let's take coffee. Kanterkolu and his team in that 2023 study we mentioned earlier, they found that coffee-derived nanoparticles could actually significantly reduce the growth of human liver cancer cells in the lab.
Wow, so coffee could actually help fight cancer. That's incredible.
Yeah, and they even found that these coffee nanoparticles contain certain microRNAs, which are like tiny pieces of genetic material that can actually influence the activity of genes. It seems like these microRNAs might be messing with the genes that tell the cancer cells to grow uncontrollably.
Fascinating. So, coffee is one example. What about other plants and other types of cancers?
There's so much research going on right now. For example, there was this study in 2022 published in Biomedicine and Pharmacotherapy that looked at nanovesicles from lemons, and they found that those could stop the growth of lung, skin, and breast cancer cells. And the cool thing is they didn't seem to harm normal healthy cells.
Oh, so they're kind of targeting the cancer cells specifically.
Exactly. And then you have Raimondo and his colleagues. They did some really interesting work back in 2015. They found that these lemon nanovesicles could actually trigger a process called apoptosis.
Oh, apoptosis.
Yeah, it's basically programmed cell death, like the cell self-destructs.
Got it.
And they found that these lemon nanoparticles could trigger this in cancer cells. They even did some studies in animals, and they showed that the nanovesicles could slow down the growth of leukemia.
It's like each plant is a treasure trove of potential cancer-fighting agents.
I know, right? And Stanley's team, they looked at grapefruit nanoparticles in a 2020 study in cells, and they found that those were effective against melanoma cells. It seems like they were interfering with some of the signaling pathways that are essential for the melanoma cells to grow and divide.
So it's not just that they're present, they're actively doing something within those cancer cells.
Exactly. They're like tiny little warriors going in and disrupting the cancer's communication system.
That's a great analogy. So we've talked a lot about cancer, but are there other health benefits associated with these PDNVs? I mean, I know inflammation is a big factor in a lot of diseases.
Absolutely. And that's another area where PDNVs are showing promise. They seem to have a knack for regulating inflammation. You know how ginger is often touted as an anti-inflammatory remedy?
Yeah, I love ginger too.
Well, there's actually some science behind it. Chen and colleagues published a paper in 2019 in Molecular Pharmaceutics where they found that ginger-derived nanoparticles could actually block the activation of something called the NLRP3 inflammasome.
The NLRP3 what?
It's a bit of a mouthful. But basically, it's a key component of our immune system. And when it gets activated, it triggers a huge inflammatory response.
Oh, I see. So ginger is calming down the immune system.
Sort of. It's more like it's preventing this overreaction, this excessive inflammation that can lead to all sorts of problems.
Interesting. So it's kind of like it's keeping things in check.
Yeah, exactly. And in a 2015 paper, Zwang and his team found that ginger nanoparticles could actually protect against alcohol-induced liver damage. And it seems like they were doing this by activating certain pathways that help protect cells from stress.
Wow. So my ginger tea might actually be doing more than just tasting good. It could be protecting my liver on a microscopic level.
Exactly. And it's not just ginger. There's evidence that PDNVs from other plants can benefit gut health too.
Gut health?
Yeah, a lot of research has shown that when you eat these plants, the PDNVs can actually interact with both the trillions of bacteria that live in your gut and the cells that line your intestines.
Oh, so they're not just being digested and absorbed, they're actually impacting our gut microbiome.
You got it. There's a really cool review paper that talks about different engineering strategies for PDNVs. It mentions how nanoparticles from turmeric and tartary buckwheat can actually change the composition of the gut microbiota, potentially making it healthier.
So it's like they're gardening our gut.
That's one way to put it. They're definitely influencing the balance of bacteria in our digestive system. And they've even found that nanoparticles from garlic can help promote the growth of beneficial bacteria.
Oh, wow, like prebiotics.
In a way, yes. And then there's this really fascinating study from 2021 by Lei and his team that was published in iScience. They found that lemon nanoparticles could actually protect against a pretty nasty infection in the gut, Clostridioides difficile, often called C. diff. And what's really interesting is that this protective effect seemed to be linked to the presence of probiotics.
Wow, so they might actually be helping the good bacteria in our gut fight off the bad guys. This is really incredible stuff. So these little plant packages are doing all sorts of amazing things. But I'm curious, could we maybe take this even further? Could we use PDNVs to deliver drugs or medications more effectively?
Yes, that's actually a really exciting area of research right now. Because these nanoparticles are natural, They tend to be very biocompatible.
Biocompatible.
Yeah, it means that our bodies generally accept them without any adverse reactions. And there's even some research that suggests that some PDMVs might be able to cross the blood-brain barrier.
Oh, that's that barrier that protects the brain.
Exactly. And it's notoriously difficult to get drugs past that barrier. So this makes PDMVs really appealing as potential drug delivery systems.
Okay, I'm seeing the potential here. So instead of using artificial nanoparticles, we could use these naturally derived ones to transport drugs or medications to specific places in the body.
Exactly. And scientists are already working on this. Mammadova and colleagues did some work in 2023. Their study was published in Pharmaceutics, and they looked at loading curcumin, which is this compound found in turmeric that has a lot of anti-inflammatory properties, into tomato-derived nanoparticles. And then you've got other researchers who are looking at loading things like cernase into grapefruit nanoparticles.
Cernase.
Small interfering RNAs. They're like tiny pieces of genetic material that can actually silence specific genes.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so like a way of turning off certain genes that might be causing problems.
Yeah.
The whole idea is to create a more targeted and less toxic way of delivering medications.
That sounds super promising.
Yeah.
So how do they actually get the drugs into these tiny nanoparticles?
There are several methods. Sometimes they just mix the drug with the nanoparticles and the drug gets sort of encapsulated inside. Other times, they use more complex techniques to open up the nanoparticle membrane and load the drug in. There's also a lot of work being done on modifying the surface of the nanoparticles to make them more targeted, like they might attach molecules that will help the nanoparticles bind to specific cells or tissues in the body. It's like a great review on this in that Engineering Strategies paper.
Wow, so much intricate work. It sounds like there's so much potential here, but this is all still pretty early stage research, right? What are some of the big questions that scientists are still trying to answer?
Yeah, we're still in the early days. One of the big challenges is figuring out how to produce these PDMVs at a large scale, in a standardized way. We need to make sure that the material is consistent and high quality, whether it's for research or for potential therapies. Several reviews talk about this, including one on plant-derived nanoparticles for biomedical applications. And of course, we need to do more research to really understand how these PDMVs interact with our bodies in the long term. We need more in vivo studies, meaning studies in living organisms, and ultimately clinical trials in humans.
That makes sense. So lots of exciting possibilities, but still some work to do. To kind of recap our discussion today, what are the key takeaways about these fascinating plant-derived nanoparticles?
Well, the main thing is that plants are making these tiny little vesicles, and these vesicles have shown some really exciting potential for improving our health. We've talked about how they might be able to fight cancer, reduce inflammation, and even improve gut health. And they also hold promise as drug delivery systems.
It's incredible to think that something as simple as the plants we eat could be a source of such cutting-edge medical treatments. It really highlights the amazing connection between nature and our own health. For our listeners who are eager to learn more about this, what would you recommend?
I would say look for scientific articles and reviews on plant-derived extracellular vesicles or nanoparticles. You can also follow the work of researchers in fields like nanomedicine and plant biology. This is a rapidly evolving area, so there are new discoveries happening all the time.
And on that note, we'll leave you with this thought. Could the future of medicine be growing right in our gardens and on our farms? Thank you for joining us for this exploration of plant-derived nanoparticles on the Biomedical Podcast.
My pleasure.
Until next time.